It is a big night. We've got a news alert now. President Trump has one word, just one word, to rebuke senators who voted against his national emergency declaration. Drum roll, please. That word is veto. There you go. Veto O'Rourke, the phrase of the night. The president tomorrow expected to veto the resolution, setting up what could become an epic legal battle for the Supreme Court. The only reason he's in this position is because 12 Republicans jumped ship and joined Democrats to vote 59-41 against the president. Most of those Republicans say they did so on constitutional grounds, arguing Congress is the branch in charge of the budget. That is correct. However, on this issue, the president disagrees. Watch.
The legal scholars all say it's totally constitutional. It's very important. It's really a border security vote. It's pure and simple. It's a vote for border security. It's a vote for no crime.
I like no crime. It's not going to happen this way. But let's look into something else. It's the first time Congress has ever voted to block a presidential national emergency. As you know, the president is looking for billions of dollars to build and bolster the border wall. Lawmakers, they're not giving it to him. So the commander-in-chief decided to go the national emergency route instead, arguing he needs to protect Americans from the crisis on the southern border. Lawmakers are obviously very divided on that claim. Watch.
In my opinion, having just been down there, we have an absolute crisis, so I'm fully supportive of the president's move.
The president is seizing power unlawfully and unconstitutionally, and the Congress has an opportunity to send a message that we are going to stand up for democracy and the rule of law.
I'm taking shrapnel like this is real name. What a liar. Of course, there is more to this than keeping us safe. Building the wall was the president's signature campaign promise, and he needs a win on that issue going into the 2020 cycle. There's also the question of whether the president will seek revenge on those 12 Republicans who defied him. And also, what happens now? Where do we go from here? That is the question of the night for Ohio Congressman and House Ways and Means Committee member Brad Wenstrup. Welcome to the show, Congressman.
Thank you.
All right,
Good to be with you.
let's discuss obviously the declaration failed in the House and the Senate, but a little bit larger margin in the Senate than politicos had predicted. So where do we go from here?
Well, I think the president said it very well. He said veto. That's where he goes from there. You know, the president didn't write the National Emergency Act. That was in 1976. He didn't write that, but he was using it. I did my homework, like I think everyone tried to do, and consulted with legal scholars, as the president did, and went through the process, and it seems to me that this was legal. But more so than anything else, this is an emergency, and I don't know why so many people are burying their heads in the sand, because that's what some people are saying. So why some Republicans who voted the other way, they were talking about it constitutional. We see Democrats that think it's not an emergency, and I don't know how they can possibly say that, because we really have a problem on our hands.
They're coming to the same conclusion from different roads, I believe. Yes.
Well, yeah, they're coming to the same vote, but from different roads, at least in the Senate side as well. And I think the president is right to seek this route. He is trying to protect the American people. And we went through this when there was all the discussion on the budget and the wall. And I met with the president, and I really came away convinced that his goal is to protect the American people. You know, we see things like Chuck Schumer saying, you know, people shouldn't come to the United States and see a wall. They should see something like the Statue of Liberty first. And I agree with him 100%. Because if you come up to a wall, you're in the wrong place. And we want a legal, robust immigration system in America. It's good for America if it's done right.
The president has said he wants to build a beautiful door. And I think that's a metaphor for fixing some of the immigration laws right now that are so confusing. And part of the reason that so many people are trying to cross the border because they fear that a wall will be constructed and legal immigration will be curtailed. So they're doing whatever they can to get in before the door slams shut. Now, sir, that doesn't have to do with the president. That has to do with you and your colleagues. And now we're forced into this very narrow argument as to how to use these funds, which are supposed to be appropriated for defense projects, when really we should be talking about the kind of people we want in this country to work hard and make the country better, as immigrants always have in our beautiful history. So why have you and your colleagues abdicated that critical responsibility?
Well, I don't think that many of us have abdicated that, and it has been abdicated for some time, though. I would have to agree with you. Look, I have the paperwork of my parents and my grandparents and great-grandparents coming through Ellis Island. It's a thing of beauty. You know, when I deployed to Iraq, and I was there for a year, and at one point I took 3 of our enlisted in to one of Saddam's palaces to be sworn in as U.S. citizens. I get it. I understand the beauty of immigration in this country. We have to move forward. I will say that I think my experience since I've been in Congress is there are those on the other side of the aisle that want to keep this as an issue rather than solving it.
They don't want to solve it. No, Democrats are absolutely right about that.
Pelosi.
And that is one of the big issues I have with the Democrat caucus. They don't want to solve this at all. They really don't like immigration to be an issue for them because they don't have solutions. We're going to talk about Beto O'Rourke a little more in the show, but he's talking about tearing down the wall, which doesn't really make any sense because he's not talking about how the government can possibly pay for an ever-growing entitlement state for people who come here who expect government assistance. So we can't have it both ways. Both parties are trying to do just that. And now we're going to come to another impasse over the budget and possibly have another shutdown over billions more dollars that Congress won't give to the president. And I don't understand, and please help me understand, what is the ultimate outcome here?
Well, I can't give you a positive answer because I've been hearing that in the House, the Democrats aren't even going to produce a budget. So, you know, I voted for no budget, no pay several years ago. I'm all in favor of that.
Isn't
you know,
it
the
their
voters are not holding
though?
people. Absolutely, it is, and I'm all in. The voters are not
by the way,
holding
I want to
politicians
stop you
accountable.
just for a second there because there are so many Democrats, especially in leadership, who are up in arms because you know, Congress is supposed to have the power of the purse, and these bills are supposed to generate in the House. But what are they doing about it?
Well, right now, from what I've seen, nothing. Today, we had a hearing in Ways and Means on the president's budget, and I heard a lot of Democrats ripping into it. And my question to them was, well, let's bring forward your budget, so let's have the alternative. And I don't think we're going to see one. So they're talking out of both sides of their mouth when they do that. And so I said, well, bring forward your budget, and maybe Mr. Mnuchin and the White House administration can go ahead and have a conversation, see if there's some common ground somewhere. You're going to see
when it comes to spending,
resolutions.
there is common ground. Yes, and continuing resolutions, all they are, that's just another word for a giant can that gets kicked down the road, and we don't solve any of these problems that will ultimately lead to a giant economic crisis that we are not prepared to pay. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Congressman.